Hello, everybody, and welcome to an emergency pod, the second of the afternoon, and that's following the 3-hour live show we did before. Bo Wolf, Zach Berman, as we have big news. Zach, the Eagles, and I think a reassuring testament to what our eyes see. Yeah. They saw the same thing, Zach. They have sent Kenny Pickett to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for a 5th-round pick and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, another quarterback for the factory. But most importantly, this means that they are clearing the way and letting it be known that Tanner McKee, after being the best number 3 quarterback in the league, is now the best number 2 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, good deal for the Eagles. Good process and good outcome in all respects. Kenny Pickett, like, we can disagree, or I shouldn't say disagree. We can kind of quibble on the value he provided last year, but he gave them a backup with starting experience, one more year of development for Tanner McKee, who they knew less about a year ago than they obviously know now. Tanner McKee is clearly ready to be the backup quarterback. It makes sense to have Tanner McKee as your backup quarterback now. So they traded a year ago. They trade a 4th-round pick, or I'm sorry, a 3rd-round pick for they trade a 3rd-round pick and then 2 7ths this year for a 4th-round pick and Kenny Pickett. So they move back in the draft and they get Kenny Pickett, and now they turn Pickett into a 5th-round pick and a developmental quarterback, a project quarterback. I mean, a guy who could be your number 3. Maybe he's not on the roster, but still a good guy to get in the trade. A guy who was a draftable quarterback a year ago. I think that's a real good process for the Eagles. It clears the deck for Tanner McKee. It also saves them, $2.6 million, which is
not nothing
to sneeze about either. So, frankly, they did better than I thought. When I wrote about this in the 25-step guide, I said they should try to get a 6th-round pick or move up from the 5th to the 4th. To get a 5th outright, I think that's real good compensation for Pickett right now.
I think it's already one of Howie Roseman's best trades ever. Now, listen, Kenny Pickett did well when he was called on this year. He did fine. He moved the offense. That Washington game when he comes in, if Devontae Smith doesn't drop that ball, he wins that game too. He did fine. He is what the Eagles asked him to be, right?
Exactly.
He was a veteran presence with starting experience in case he was called upon. But we also saw Tanner McKee looked better than him. He looked better than him in the summer. And he looked better than him when he played in the regular sesion. Yep. Tanner McKee is ready. He is ready to not just be a number 2 quarterback. I think he could start for teams. That's me, editorializing. But I really do. It is. We talk about this is the period of time in the NFL when basically the only time when teams have to tell you the truth, right? Because in the draft, it's not necessarily up to them. Things can happen that are out of their control. At this point of the year, when you are in free agency or you are making trades, you're telling the truth because the entire league is open to you. What can you do? What do you care about? How do you feel about your roster? And it's nice to know that even though, they kept Kenny Pickett as a number 2, they saw the same thing that we saw, that Tanner McKee is ready for this opportunity. And I think you're right. The return for Kenny Pickett is a nice pat on the back for the job that you did this year. You filled that role. And to get a 5th-round pick and a quarterback who you say in Dorian Thompson-Robinson is actually an interesting fit for the Eagles. Yeah. He let's be fair here. The Cleveland Browns are desperate for a quarterback. They gave him a couple chances, and he did not do very well. I think 1 touchdown to 10 interceptions in his time with Cleveland. But he has some athletic tools. I think ran like a 4.5 something at the combine. Played a lot of football at UCLA, and so a player who, if you think about, is there somebody in the offense who could give you some simulacrum of, the Jalen Hurts offense in some situation? This is at least a mobile quarterback who could give you some of that. A player to keep an eye on, as you said, probably, is not definitely going to be on the roster, but is the front runner for the number 3 job. That's fine. But this is really about like paving the way for Tanner McKee, and that's what he deserves. It's good. This is a good deal.
Yeah, it didn't make sense for them to bring both quarterbacks back, right? It was either trade McKee for a good return, as a guy who could start somewhere else, or trade Pickett. And that I know there were listeners and readers and viewers, listeners, readers, however we want to frame it in whatever order, who might have been skeptical that the Eagles could get something for Pickett. I thought they could. I didn't know how much they could, but I thought they could. I think that to get DTR in it, and again, we can quibble about DTR's value, but he is someone that they brought in on a top 30 visit, right? And so when you bring a quarterback in on a top 30 visit, it shows that you are intrigued by him to a certain extent. But you're right. This is about Tanner McKee, and this is about a guy you took day 3 when it's hard to find a quarterback. You identified him, you developed him, and now you get 2 years, presumably 2 years of a cost-controlled backup quarterback. There is a world in which McKee looks awesome this summer. Maybe Jalen goes down at some point, and McKee looks even better, and you flip McKee for something more. But I think like if the scenario here is you get 2 years of McKee, that's terrific for the Eagles. I mean, when you just look at what his salary is, the fact that you're getting a draft pick back here and you're getting a potential third quarterback back, so it's not as if the Eagles need to use a day 3 pick this year on a quarterback. Like, I mean, Thompson-Robinson could be a guy for you this year, right? So I mean, I try to always say, all right, is there something here I'm missing? I don't want to be just over the top about everything that they do, but I like the process here. I like the result. I think McKee's the better backup quarterback. He's the less expensive backup quarterback. And again, I've been saying whenever this conversation has come up, and we talked about a flu world order, we talked about the quarterback situation after this, I said you can't hold last year's price on Pickett as like what you're going to judge this on, because you got a year of Pickett and you got that year of development for McKee. You weren't ready to make McKee the number 2 last year based on the information that you had.
I think that's right. And as for like the allure of Pickett for the Browns, I mean, part of it is you see like, Jarrett Stidham is getting $8 million or whatever it is to be a backup. I mean, Kenny Pickett is $2.5 million for a capable backup who could start in an emergency. That's good surplus value, right? Do you think that he will be like, Deshaun Watson's recovering from this injury? Do you think Kenny Pickett's going to be their week 1 starter?
No, I'm still kind of earmarking them as the Kirk Cousins destination. I think it makes too much sense with Kevin Stefanski's background. I think Stefanski needs to win this year. Stefanski and Kirk Cousins have worked together. I mean, there are only going to be so many chairs left, for a Cousins trade. I don't know why Atlanta's being like so resolute here. It sounds like Watson's going to miss the season. I mean, he retore his Achilles. So I don't know this, but unless Cleveland takes a quarterback in the first round, which is conceivable, maybe they take Travis Hunter in the first round or something like that, and then they turn around or they take or they take somebody in the first round who's not a quarterback, and they take a Jalen Milroe or a Shedeur Sanders. They trade back into round 1 for Shedeur Sanders. There's a handful of scenarios here. But I do think that Pickett has a better path to playing time in Cleveland than he does in Philadelphia for sure. So I think this makes sense for Kenny Pickett.
So just so you know, the EPA per dropback just last year, quarterbacks who attempted at least 40 passes. Tanner McKee, number 4 in the league, after Marcus Mariota, number 1, then Lamar Jackson, and then Jared Goff. And then there are 56 qualifying quarterbacks. Number 55 is Deshaun Watson. Number 56, almost twice as bad, was Dorian Thompson-Robinson last year. So he did not fare very well last year, but that's okay. He's not here to be the starter.
Yeah.
3.3 net yards per pass attempt from DTR last year. By the way, Pickett on that list, 22, sandwiched between Matthew Stafford and Sam Darnold.
And like I know we talk a lot about McKee. You feel utterly confident in McKee's readiness to be if Jalen Hurts tears his ACL week 1, that Tanner McKee can step in and be your starting quarterback.
Utterly 100%, yes. And that's That's not really a bit. Like,
okay, yeah, that's what I'm asking. Like the joking aside, like you feel confident in that.
Yes, I think there are a lot of things you see with Tanner McKee that are awesome. One of them is like just the decisiveness, and like the ball comes out quickly, and honestly, the numbers bear that out. I mean, again, this was a small sample size, right? He played a game and a half last year, but Jalen Hurts had the longest time to throw in the league last year. Okay, for all those quarterbacks, took him over 3 seconds to get rid of the ball. Tanner McKee was the fourth quickest, 2.4 seconds behind Tua, who is like famous for this, and then Tim Boyle and Cooper Rush, who are getting rid of the ball. But he's not just getting rid of the ball, on a quick 5-yard throw, right? He's willing to throw the ball downfield. He throws a very catchable ball. I really, really believe in Tanner McKee as a starting caliber quarterback.
Yeah, because and I see Khalif says, Zach, WTF. It's because when you're a Super Bowl contender, that's the question you have to ask. If you lose your quarterback, are you still can you still be a good team? And the reality is, as promising as Tanner McKee looked in the past decade, the only 2 times that the Eagles have gone into a season with a less experienced quarterback than Tanner McKee as the backup would be Nate Sudfeld in 19, and they actually brought in Josh McCown because they wanted to make sure that they had more experience there. And then 2020, when they had Hurts and Sudfeld, right? Outside of that, they've had an experienced backup quarterback or an experienced backup quarterback every year. If you include Chase Daniel, who had like starts when he was the backup. Then the next year, Nick Foles, right? They've continued. Then they had Nick Foles the following year. They've continued to try to seek experienced backup quarterbacks. It's the reason why they had Joe Flacco, and they had Gardner Minshew, and then they had Marcus Mariota. This year, the reason why they traded for Kenny Pickett was that starting experience, right? They valued that. So in Tanner McKee, you have one start at the NFL level, and it was a really promising start. Like, he looked awesome week 18, but that's what you're going off of if something were to happen to Jalen Hurts early in the season.
Do you think that calculation changes when your quarterback himself is more experienced? I mean, you think about the last decade of the Eagles, it was always a young quarterback, right, who they were trying to cover for. I don't necessarily think that that's the case, but I wonder if that changes at all.
I'm going to change your EX word. I think that calculation changes when your quarterback's more expensive. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's ultimately what it is that, it is something when your quarterback's more experienced, that it's true. But when the Eagles are at a point now where Hurts' contract's kicking in. Yeah. And I think, and not to say that, look, Kenny Pickett wasn't going to cost them a lot this year either.
But to your point, that's why they traded for Kenny Pickett last year. Exactly. And not, signed Jacoby Brissett for $8 million.
And if you take them at their word, and we can debate this, it was why they drafted Jalen Hurts, right? Because Carson's contract was kicking in. They wanted a cost-effective backup quarterback at that time, right? Tanner McKee is as inexpensive of a backup quarterback as any Super Bowl contender will have next season, without a doubt.
And I see people talking about the the way that they call the offense being different for McKee and Hurts, and that being part of the ball coming out. I think that's only a little bit true. Like, yes, Jalen Hurts can afford to hold on to the ball more because he is athletic and he can escape pressure, whereas Tanner McKee, that's not the thing that he's going to do. He's there to get rid of the ball. They're a different style of players. And yes, the offense is called differently, but I think that that's more of a function of like what Jalen Hurts likes as opposed to necessarily something else. For instance, we talked about like the first half of that game that Tanner McKee played as a starter. We saw like the highest rate of play action we have seen all season long. And I think that's probably what the offense would have liked to do at certain points. It's just not necessarily what Jalen Hurts wanted. And just to look at these numbers again, very small sample size, but Tanner McKee, 29% of his dropbacks were play action when he played this year. Again, super small. Whereas Jalen Hurts was less than 20%. And that's the difference between, 6th in the league and 39th in the league.
Yeah. It's how you started the show. we've said it all along. This is about Tanner McKee. This is about the way the Eagles feel about Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee has aced every checkpoint they could have last season in particular. He looked great in training camp. Okay. He plays in the preseason. He looks great in the preseason, I thought. Yeah, I know the third game was a little inconsistent, but the first 2 games was the better quarterback. Practice, everything we heard behind the scenes, he looked good. But then he gets a game and a half and looked great in that game and a half. So every checkpoint that they had, practice, preseason games, regular season games, Tanner McKee answered the bell. So this trade is absolutely about Tanner McKee. And however you could say Tanner McKee unseated Kenny Pickett, you could say but I think we both agreed that they had 2 assets here. It didn't make sense to bring both of them back. They traded the asset that I think had probably less trade value, but they got something for Pickett here. Frankly, more than I thought they would get. And it's just a terrific outcome for the Eagles.
Great outcome. And just to close the loop on that, it was not the case that Jalen Hurts was then throwing the ball downfield more. Their air yards per attempt were both between 7 and 8 yards. So they were throwing the ball in similar places. Do you think? Let's play this out. Let's say 18 years from now. Do you think Tanner McKee's getting that knock on the door from someone who's not David Baker?
No, I don't. I don't think Tanner McKee is a Hall of Famer. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if 2 years from now Tanner McKee's starting in the NFL somewhere.
Do you think there's any path that he's the Eagles starter in 3 years?
Well, I would never say never, but I'm not expecting that. I mean, I think when Carson Wentz signed his contract extension, I never would have suggested that he wouldn't be the starting quarterback before the contract extension kicked in, right? So Jalen Hurts just won the Super Bowl MVP. I don't see a scenario in the short term where Jalen Hurts is not the Eagles starting quarterback. But again, it's hard to predict the future, right? It's easier to chronicle it than it is to predict it.
I think we have one super chat here from DFC who says, so now that the Eagles have the best quarterback from the 2023 preseason, do you start thinking about trading Jalen Hurts and McKee to reload the offense? DTR was very good two summers ago.
Oh, okay. Oh,
he's talking about Darren.
Oh,
DTR.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you mean there. Okay.
Did you like DTR when he was playing for Chip at UCLA?
I watched a good amount of him actually. I actually didn't love him there, but I thought he exhibited good moxie, good leadership ability. I mean, he was that year they were able to win games that I thought that they probably weren't going to win if not for a veteran college quarterback. But I didn't love him coming out or I wasn't as high on him coming out as you were, if I'm being honest.
I wasn't that high on him. I just identified him as a possible day 3 sleeper.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Which, by the way, he's going into year 3 in the NFL. So that's a good outcome for he lasted longer than Clayton Thorson did, right? Clayton Thorson was a 5th round pick.
Here's I believe, aside from the McKee factor of this, probably the most important domino from this is longtime listeners will remember Michael Dunn says hello to Kenny Pickett. Michael Dunn is a free agent. Do you think that this makes it more or less likely that Michael Dunn rejoins the Cleveland Browns? Do you think he wants to be able to have this conversation with Kenny Pickett again? Or do you think he's kind of embarrassed about the whole thing and kind of wants to avoid it?
Oh, no, I think, look, if you're I don't even want to say a reserve offensive lineman, if you're an offensive lineman, and especially one who's like an emergency center, then having chemistry with the quarterback is awesome, right? And they've trained together at the test facility out in New Jersey. I think this is a great connection for Michael Dunn. But I'm hoping Michael Dunn starts somewhere, frankly, next year.
The Eagles have a hole at right guard.
Yeah, maybe in Cleveland.
The Eagles now, after this pick, Zach, have 4 picks in the 5th round of the draft within 8 picks of each other. How many turkeys on them making all 4 of those picks?
How many turkeys on them making all 4 of those picks? 0.
Yes.
0 turkeys. The question is like how many if they turn these into 26 picks or if they use them to trade up. Because if you remember, the interesting thing is that the pick that they got in the Pickett deal, okay, so they got a 4th rounder back. They actually turned that into a 3rd rounder this year. They turned that into the Dolphins' 3rd rounder this year, right? So with 4 5th round picks, I'm wondering. 4 5th round picks. I'm wondering if those are packaged with a 3rd round pick to move up, or a 2nd round pick to move up, or even a 1st round pick to move up, or if these are the type of deals that they use to trade for 26 picks and just get more ammo next year. Because the Eagles like doing. The other thing they could do, by the way, is these could be player deals. We're talking about the comp pick formula. If you're talking about if you're looking for ways to address your team, to upgrade your team, you can certainly turn a 5th round pick into a decent edge rusher, or into a decent linebacker or a decent corner, something like that.
Yeah, that's fair. Rohit says Kenny started a game against the Cowboys and won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. Lived every Eagles fan's dream.
You're right. And good point, Rohit. And he's actually the answer to a trivia question, which is who was the quarterback when the Eagles won the Super Bowl? And the answer was Kenny Pickett. He took the knees at the end of the game. Maybe that's why Jalen wanted to be in the game so badly. Maybe Jalen wanted to have that ball. I actually wonder what Kenny Pickett did with that ball.
Oh.
Right? Did he hold on to it? Did he flip it back to the ref? Like, what's the? I'm curious about that.
That is a good follow story.
Yeah, like what happened to the Super Bowl winning ball? Because Jalen did want to stay in that game, right?
That's funny. I like that. I like that angle. I think the last thing here. What do I have here? Oh, you know what? I don't know what it was. I do wonder. There's the change of mind for Myles Garrett. Maybe the Browns presented their plan for him, and that was part of not just the $40 million, but convincing him that they were headed in the right direction. What if they told him they were trading for the Eagles' backup quarterback, and he assumed it was Tanner McKee, and that's why he signed the deal, and now he's gobsmacked that it was actually Kenny Pickett?
I actually don't have an answer for that. I don't think that's the case. I'm sure. I don't know if he knows Tanner McKee, but he definitely knows Kenny Pickett. He played against Kenny Pickett.
That's
right?
true.
Pickett was with the Steelers. So maybe that was one. I saw actually Jerry Jeudy was on some interview today, and they asked him what he would tell Andrew Berry, and he said, "Go get me a quarterback," right? And so I wonder if they said we're getting you Kenny Pickett. But hey, good for Kenny Pickett, man, right? Like I think Rohit put it well. He gets a Super Bowl ring. He plays for his hometown team. And now he gets a better chance he gets a chance to advance his career more.
Okay. All right. I think that can wrap up our Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee Ascension Emergency Pod. Zach, something tells me this might not be the last time we see each other tonight. Although you got your game.
I know, 8:15, not 8:45, 8:15. And
you gotta get ready. You gotta stretch.
Yeah. So we'll see. But I'm gonna say hello to the wife and kids, and then to Emily and the kids, I should say, not the wife, Emily and the kids.
The old ball and chain.
And then
women.
But I've not done any writing today. I have so much writing.
Do shop.
I have so much writing I need to do. So, but yeah, everything is. We probably will see each other.
Now by the way, where are you going to be doing that writing, Zach? This is the thing that I needed to do.
Oh, allphly.com. We got special introductory rate right now. Limited time intro offer, $36. You can read right now Bo Wolf's top 100 Eagles free agent. See who's still available. You can read my 25-step guide if I were Howie Roseman. You can read my 8 thoughts this morning. You can read the thoughts that I'll have tomorrow from today's activity. Of course, you can read Fran Duffy's draft guide. You can read Charlie O'Connor's outstanding trade deadline coverage for the Flyers. Okay. Kyle and Derek do an awesome job with the Sixers. Jim Salisbury for the Phillies. There is nowhere else you're getting this type of comprehensive coverage on Philly sports. So make sure you check that out on allphly.com. And we have a great QR code on the screen that you can see.
Nicely done. Now's the time. $36 for the whole year.
Yes.
What a deal that is.
What a deal that is. Now, let me ask you, if we do an emergency show tonight,
Yes.
are you expecting it to be a player leaving or a player coming?
Well, there's probably that's not true. I was going to say there's probably only one other player who deserves an emergency pod for leaving, but I don't think that's true. I'm willing to do an emergency pod for Fred Johnson signing with someone.
Our best numbers last year were Devontae Parker.
Kenny Gainwell. Well, anybody coming, anyone coming is an emergency pod for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's still more likely that we're probably going to do a Mekhi Becton pod tonight. That's my guess.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I look forward to, unless it's between 8, well, I'll leave at 8 and I'll probably be home around 9:30. So 8 and 9:30, I'll be hopefully winning a playoff game. If I'm not winning a playoff game, then I will be back here and ready to do an emergency show.
Zach, I want you winning that game, and I want you holding the ball at the end. I want you getting the Kenny Pickett for this game tonight.
Okay. Actually, you know what? If we win the game, I probably am holding the ball at the end of the game. That is true.
Love that. All right. Well, thank you to Julia and Chris for hanging around for this emergency pod. That'll do it. For Zach, I'm Bo. We thank you for watching and listening. Stay tuned for more to come. Kenny Pickett, thank you for your service. Tanner McKee, we are not worthy. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.